Straight dog talk, and the some jump on in and speculate. Show up on time, don't be weak and late. We are community, so don't hate, and learn to cooperate. Yeah, hit that like button and do your thing. 5 membership will get you in. So let's talk dogs and don't waste no time. Monday 7 PCST. Don't come doing the HATE. Otherwise Hollywood will give you the BYE. Here we go, kill the whistle. Oh yeah, we are going for a whole hour. Straight dog talk and the song. Jump on in and speculate. Show up on time, don't be weak and late. We are community, so don't hate, and learn to cooperate. Hit that like button and do your thing. 5 membership will get you in. So let's talk dogs and don't waste no time. Monday 7 PCST. Don't come doing the HATE. Otherwise Hollywood will give you the BYE.
The BYE. What is going on, fam? Welcome to Friday Bully Live. Listen, we have a special guest today. You already know. Is the ABKC president, Mr. Dave Wilson. We're going to bring him on, and we're going to have a ball. Before we get started, I just want to make something perfectly clear. You can ask whatever question you want, as long as you do it in a respectful manner, educated manner. We're going to go ahead and ask the questions. If there are any personal or family attacks, you will not only be blocked, you will be banned from the channel. Just getting the point across, getting it ready. You guys already know how it is that we roll. Right now, let me just very quickly, before I bring you on, Dave, Queen's New Bully Blood, Hollywood. Can I hear it for Queen's New Bully Blood, MBK?
Pues claro que sí, cabrón.
Pues claro que sí, cabrón.
Pues claro que sí, cabrón.
We do this every Monday and every Friday at 8 PCST. We got Michael Higginson. What's up, Raul? What's up, Dave? Glad to see the live come together. Dave, welcome to QBN Live. We're happy to have you here and appreciate your time. Absolutely, man. Infamous Hafa Adai, all the way from the Mariana Islands. We got Insurata on board. We got Doreel liking the song. We got Genesis Legacy Kennels. Good evening. I'm here, ready to talk. That's what I'm talking about. QBN cooking tonight. We got TR Baber. Good evening, Raul and chat. Eric Rutherford is also on board. And we got Robert Randolph saluting us. Well, without further ado, man, let's bring in Dave Wilson, president of the ABKC. Dave, how's it going, brother?
I'm good. Half hour for my bedtime, but I'm good right now. I'm going to try my best to make it an hour. So, yeah.
All right, man. Listen, Dave, we spoke about 2 weeks ago, man. And, you opened my eyes to a lot of things that it's just been very difficult for me to get my hands on as far as information. And I think I'm speaking as well for the American Bully XL community mostly. Like I told you that day, I think there's a little bit of a disconnect, which you've also agreed upon. We're going to be hitting on some subjects like Brazilian Bulls, Merle, recent topics, as well as the UK American Bully ban. We're going to talk about the golden pedigree that you and I spoke about. And also, I would like for you to start as far as the beginning of the ABKC and, what got you to get this breed started. Floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, and good to see you tonight. To be quite honest, I was a founder of Razor's Edge Kennels. That was my bloodline. The American Pitbull Terrier was the breed that I was in. UKC was the atmosphere, the shows that I competed in. I had a lot of champions, grand champions, top 10 dogs. Did very well in UKC and competed in UKC for many years. The Razor's Edge bloodline grew across the United States, grew internationally, and all of a sudden the UKC decided to change the breed standard. And when they did that, they pushed for a more terrier style of dog. And to make it go a little further in with that, it wasn't actually the UKC, sorry. They, put that to a committee called the National American Pitbull Terrier Association, which is a committee of different breeders, in essence, a breed club of breeders that changed year to year to year. And as the panel changed, so did the standards to fit the style of dogs of those breeders. So when they implemented this slash change, it kind of left my bloodline nowhere to compete. We had the bullier style of dogs. If you followed Razor's Edge, I always use the terms like, putting the bull back in terrier and where females outdo other kennels males, and always little quotes that reference the more bullier style of the American Pitbull Terrier. And it kind of left other breeders, also in the same situation, gaff kennels being another big one out on the West Coast. So for a period of time, we backed off the UKC. And here at Razor's Edge, we kind of started doing things here in my own backyard. We had a lot of just barbecues, cookouts, all kinds of people would come from all over. People would drive all across the state to come here, and we would have big events. Later on, I met, I was friends with a guy named Rodney Bingley, NuTrojan line out of California, out of LA. He introduced me to Richard Barajas, and I went out there to California, and I started meeting some of those guys and the guys that had the Gotti blood and things stemming off of Gray Line, and started to realize that they were kind of in a similar situation. They had UKC registered American Pitbull Terriers, but they kind of didn't have a platform for their dogs either. Now, to fast forward a little bit, I went out to a UKC show in California where I competed and won, actually, but saw how they treated all of the other people there that had dogs, and they kind of looked down on a lot of the guys that had dogs, and they even pulled me aside and said, Dave, you're welcome here. However, you're not from California. These guys are gangsters, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because I was like, these guys are here just to show their dogs. Like, they're just here to do something. They have UKC registered dogs. They're trying to get out and do something. And I felt it was very discriminatory the way they treated people. And that was kind of the final straw for me. So then, we started to do a little events out here. We started what you call the Elite Edge message board on MSN, and that kind of where the bully community started to grow. And then you started having people putting on events like Larry Duran in California started throwing shows. Byron started throwing shows in Texas. We started doing shows, but there was no real name or reason for anything. I think at that point, we said, we need to do something. We need to do something for these dogs, and we need to figure something out. So we, as the Elite Edge, came up with the idea that we were going to create a kennel club for this, and we put out on the Elite Edge board the topic of what would we call these dogs. And a lot of names were thrown around. And in the end, we decided that we really liked the name American Bully. A lot of us at that time were already calling our dogs bullies, and we just didn't have a true name for the breed. They were all pit bulls, but we're just calling them the bully pit, really. So
Dave, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
One of a Kind is asking, what years just about are you talking about here?
Well, these things started in the early 2000s. That debate that we're talking about of the name was probably towards the end of 2003. The Elite Edge board was again in the early 2000s, 2000 probably to 2006 was the time that MSN board ran. So these are the times we were talking about. And again, so at this time, late 2003, we had this debate, and we decided to come use the name the American Bully. So at that moment, we decided we're going to write the standard. So I got together with Lou Manipon, who's a current judge now with ABKC, and we came up with the idea to create the database and to create the standard for the American Bully, which we wrote. And then I brought in my partner at the time, Cruz, and then he brought in another guy that is now the owner of Bullypedia, and that's how the ABKC started. And it was really pushed by the Elite Edge. And then Rodney came to me and said, there's a guy out here in California, Larry Duran, that's also starting something called the BKC. And it was the Bully Kennel Club. And they were calling them just, I don't know the term, bullies, is the term. So me and him got together and we tried to work a few things out. We did a show together and it didn't really work out. So we went on our own way with the ABKC. I think he went on with the BKC for a little while. And at that moment, it was mainly the Elite Edge that were registering dogs as the American Bully. And then I reached out to Richard Barajas and of Gotti Line and brought him in. And then at that moment, it was more like Razor's Edge was one side of the ABKC American Bully. Gotti Line was the other side. And that progressed for, 4 or 5 years. And I think in 2008 is when we decided to add some other varieties to the breed to accommodate the XL variety, the classic variety, and the pocket variety. And those were kind of the directions that the breeders had. You all know the XL breeders that had those type of dogs at the time. I'm not as familiar, in all honesty, with the XL lines and the XL breeders. They existed. Butthead was one of the bigger lines that I remember from that time. Oliver De La Cruz was one of the bigger breeders of that time, of the XLs. But anyway, we brought in these things, and we continued to push ABKC and the American Bully. And I think it was really about 2008, 2009, when the community finally came together and embraced this thing. It was kind of fought against for many years. A lot of people wanted to stick with the Pitbull, stick with the UKC, even though they didn't really have an avenue. But through the progression of doing events and continuing to do events, and then I was a partner in Atomic Dog magazine, and that was another avenue that we had that really pushed this breed and the Elite Edge and the ABKC and the American Bully and all of these things, Gotti Line and all these in a further direction. So that's kind of how it all came together. In all honesty, if we go further with it, I don't really think it became a breed until about 2010, because in 2010, finally you saw the Gotti Line and the Razor's Edge and all of these dogs finally blend together. And when they finally did that, it kind of gave the breed its unique look. And I truly believe that it was about 2010 that the breed started to actually take its true form. So that's kind of a quick rundown of the history of ABKC.
We have a question for you, Dave, and this question is coming from Dracula Kennels. Do you think it is okay for a judge and breeder to show their dogs at the show? For Dave Wilson, thank you.
Yeah, I don't see an issue with it. I mean, the thing about our community is you have to understand, we weren't going to get judges coming from AKC. We weren't going to get judges coming from these other entities that existed. So most of our initial judges were homegrown, judges that came through the community. And those were breeders. Initially the judges were all breeders, the American Bully. And that's kind of how we began. Later on, we did start to get judges coming in from UKC and other avenues. But, the judges are typically a lot of the people that have quality dogs. And one thing about our judges is nobody's out there looking at the face. It's all about the dog. And it really has no relevance whether it's a judge, whether it's a handler, whether it's a breeder. I mean, again, these judges are taught to judge the end of the leash, not the top of the leash. So I don't see an issue with that. And as you can see, I mean, judges win sometimes and they lose sometimes. So it's not like you're constantly seeing a judge constantly winning, or even a handler now constantly winning. You're seeing a mix of all types of people winning. So it kind of proves there's really no political thing to that at this moment. So I don't see an issue with that. And just to add a little more, just so you understand, the ABKC and the American Bully was created out of a necessity. It wasn't actually something that was created for the idea of a business. It was never the idea to initially create a new breed. It was more of a necessity to create a home for a lot of people and dogs that were displaced, that didn't have a home anymore, and where they once were either accepted, like in the UKC. So it was created out of a necessity, and over time it actually became, an actually legitimate breed that had unique characteristics and things that differentiated it from the American Pitbull Terrier.
Dave, I have a question, and then I'm going to get to another question somebody wrote. And this is the ABKC stands for American Bully Kennel Club. A lot of times in this particular platform, we have called out for a kennel club because typically that's how I guess breeds come about. Can you elaborate or give us a little bit of insight as to where we are or where we stand as a registry in comparison to having a kennel club, either overlooking us with their standard or however the relationship may develop?
Well, the difference is with a registry, the registry's job, number one, is to keep the pedigrees of the dog, to keep hold the stud books for each breed. At this moment, you kind of look at it like we kind of sort of started as a breed club. And then we've grown into what you consider a registry. So the term kennel club is a little bit misleading, because the truth is you have breed clubs and you have registries. The term kennel club actually refers to a registry, even though it's got the terminology of club to it. So, I mean, obviously the kennel club holds the stud books to the breed, and its job is to look out for the future of the breed, to maintain the growth of the breed, and then to continue on with the events and try to highlight the quality specimens of a breed. And to take that even further, as the ABKC has grown, we decided to take on other breeds, because there were other breeds out there that did not have a home, did not have acceptance from AKC or UKC. as well as we have a unique community, which and our community is different. We don't have the typical AKC community. We don't have the typical UKC community. We have a younger, more diverse type of community that is more accepting of each other, more accepting of everything from race, religion to region. It's kind of a home for a lot of different people that is different than a lot of the other registries that exist. It's not a stuffy type of registry. And a lot of people with other breeds kind of felt like, we want to be part of this as well, because we truly enjoy the community. We truly enjoy the environment, and we really enjoy the way that ABKC does the things that they do for shows and the events and the breeds. So we actually decided to take on other breeds as we've grown, and we've grown outside of just being a registry for the American Bully, but being a multi-breed registry.
You hit on something. I couldn't agree with you more. And we're going to be getting on that topic later on. But just as a side note, would you agree that what propelled this breed forward, and also the biggest portion of our community, has to do more with urban culture? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
110%. It has to do with urban culture, 110%. And it also has to do with diversity. I mean, you really have to look at it there's a lot of things in this world that are negative towards a lot of different things, from race to religion to region to all different things. And this was that one element that none of that mattered. The only thing that matters in this element is that we all have the same love for everything. But it's definitely started as definitely an urban type feel, but it's grown into a new generation type feel. So you have to look at it different ways. Yes, I think initially that urban feel to it was exactly what started it and what drove the interest in it and the popularity to it. But as it's grown, it's almost grown into something beyond that, to where it's more like a new generation type of thing.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to go ahead and open the floor, guys, for about 5 minutes. The questions need to center as to what Dave just spoke about, so we could jump into other topics. I've noticed some of you are asking questions already about the UK ban. Trust me, we're going to get into that. But right now, let's just get into what he just spoke about. If you have any questions concerning that, now would probably be the time to ask. This way we could keep everything on each particular topic. Michael Higginson, who, by the way, is my co-host every single Monday, he's asking, how close are we, in your opinion, Dave, to having what is the finished product, so to speak, of the American Bully of each class?
So the final look is there. The standard is written. The final look is there. My feeling is the quality at this moment isn't completely there. And when you look at the different varieties, I feel like certain varieties, as the pocket are further along, I think the XL, unfortunately, is not as far along as the pocket variety is. The standard is kind of in the middle. As far as the final look, we're there. And it's written, it's there. You're starting to see dogs with that. What we're lacking at the moment is the overall quality of the dogs possessing the final look of the breed. But as far as that, we are there. It's dictated. It's there. It's just now improving the dogs.
Would you say consistency also goes with the quality? Is that what you're referring to, or?
Yeah, consistency is part of it. I mean, you also have to realize we come from the basis of the most inconsistent breed as far as its look. The American Pitbull Terrier by far is the most inconsistent of all breeds, in all the different directions and looks that it's gone over the years. So, our foundation comes from inconsistency. So it's a little bit harder task in the American Bully than a lot of other breeds, because we are mainly stemming from a breed that has not much consistency. But yeah, I think the overall consistency, but not just that, the quality as well. We're still seeing a lot of dogs in two different avenues. You're seeing a lot of dogs that are fitting more on the breed type and more on the look of the breed, but possessing more physical flaws. And then you're seeing dogs that have less physical flaws, but are lacking in the look of the breed, which in essence is a big flaw itself. So that's also what I mean. It's not just the inconsistency of the look, but the quality of the dogs in what they're possessing or lacking.
Okay, fair enough. Listen, I'm going to do a quick side note, because about a year ago, I guess somebody was following your page and they went ahead and saw my product over there, Nuvet and NuJoint Plus, on your page. Can you talk to me about Nuvet? We were talking before we came on about it. I'd like for you to give me a little bit of insight on Nuvet. What did you ever see with it? What was your experience with this product?
So I met a rep for Nuvet in the early 2000s. And, you know, I'm the type of person that always experimented with everything with my dogs. And when I finally started using Nuvet, the two main things that I noticed, the first main thing that I noticed is the dogs would gain healthy weight, not a lot of weight, but they started to gain a little bit more weight with no other changes going on. And then they would maintain that weight. And that is something I really loved. Also, the quality of the coats improved. So noticing these two things within the first 2 months of using Nuvet, I realized this product definitely works for those things. I mean, the coat, great. The increase in weight, but quality weight, like I said, healthy weight was great. And it's a product that I've used for, oh goodness, like I said, I started probably 2001, and I've used it without fail. And it's never done me wrong in any way. I've got the same results to this day that I got from day one. And I mean, it's a solid product. I mean, it truly is a solid product.
Well, definitely. I appreciate you saying that. We've definitely spoken on that here on this platform. I've spoken to you guys about the degradation of the vitamins and everything on kibble once it gets cooked past a particular degree, and how Nuvet has human food grade vitamins. And that's one of the main differences as to why you see proper gain weight and better joint support. Right now, we're going to give Dave a 1 minute break. Dave, I'm going to drop a commercial. You got 1 minute. We're coming right back. Guys, real quick, let me talk to you about Nuvet and NuJoint Plus. This is a multivitamin. This is joint support. Many people out here have done before and after pictures showing you the improvement that this alone brings to the table. If you're feeding kibble, if you're feeding raw, there could be some insufficiencies that are actually causing structural issues to your dog. Wouldn't you want to correct that? This is just it. The multivitamin that'll do it for you is Nuvet and also joint support with NuJoint Plus. I recommend both bottles. We're going to go ahead and leave a link in the descriptions below. Now let's get back to it. And get back to it we shall. Before we jump into our next subject, which is going to be the golden ped, I do have a question from Louis DeMille Graham. He says, Dave Wilson, speaking on looking out for the breed, if we're looking out for the breed, why has the health of the American Bully failed? The American Bully breed, so the American Bully breed, so what went wrong, and what is your stance on why the American Bully has so many health issues and is one of the most unhealthy breeds in the market?
I'm not sure that I 100% agree with the statement. There are quite a few healthy American Bullies, and
sure,
we're gonna get into a few things that's going to highlight that. But to answer that question, yes, this is an issue, and I see three factors in this issue. Four factors actually. Factor number one, I see that people are breeding. This is one of these breeds that is a wow factor breed, no matter how you look at it. It's one of these type of breeds that the impression of the breed is what drew people into the breed, and people tend to breed for more extremities, kind of like they do with everything else in this world. They want more of this, more of that, more of that. And when you breed to excess, then you start to have problems. When you're breeding dogs that the extremities start to become hindrances on the breed, on its health, and on its functionality, this becomes a problem. So the biggest problem is that this is one of these type of breeds that is a breed based on appearance, and a lot of people keep pushing the boundaries, and you can only push the boundaries of extremities so far before they become health issues. That's one of the issues. A secondary issue to this is a lot of these breeders in the American Bully, unfortunately, are not actual breeders. A lot of these people are just get into the breed, they put two dogs together, and they're not looking at the genetic sides of things, and they're just looking more at the social media promotion of things or the financial aspects of it without ever really doing the research behind breeding dogs. And like I said, all of the other things that come into tail with breeding dogs. That's another issue. A huge issue was the pandemic. The pandemic gave an influx into the dog industry of money that's never been before. It became the thing to do for people during the pandemic. Everybody wanted to become a dog breeder, and the amount of money you could sell dogs for was unbelievable. The demand for dogs was unbelievable. But what that did, it put a lot of inexperienced people into dogs in general, not just the American Bully. And it just became something that people were mass producing, and it didn't matter. They were producing any type of thing, and the more extravagant that it got, the more extravagant the look of things got. That is what sold. Those became selling factors, and none of it pertained to the health of dogs. None of it pertained to the functionality of dogs. It all pertained to the freakiest thing that you could put out there on the internet, and it was selling, and dogs are selling for crazy amount of money. So that put a huge influx of poor quality, unhealthy dogs into every breed, but especially the American Bully and the French Bulldog too. So that's another issue. And I would say the last issue is, it's not a big thing for people to look into the health issues in types of dogs. A lot of people aren't health testing their dogs. And, as long as you have buyers out there that aren't demanding it, these breeders aren't going to do it. I mean, and that's a big issue, because right now there's, you have a lot of breeders that aren't going to do it because nobody's demanding it. So if there's a clientele and a customer base out there that isn't demanding it, then you have many breeders that aren't even going to go do it. So, a lot of it falls back on that and the inexperience of people that claim to be breeders that aren't actual breeders. So I think these are a lot of the issues in the breed right now that are hindrances on the health.
Dave, let me follow that up. I have spoken on this platform many a times. I've been wanting to interview you for quite a while because I want some clarity on this. As far as the registry requiring, say, DNA testing for health testing, I know we don't have that right now. Is that something that you feel the ABKC can actually implement in the future? Or is it something that does not fall within, I guess, your jurisdiction?
So we've always encouraged health testing. We've always had the certifications available that would go on your pedigree. This is nothing new from day one. It's listed on the pedigrees. So if you were to submit dysplasia certifications, cardiac certifications, these things would have always been available through ABKC and always been printed onto your pedigree so that it showed that you had the certifications for these things. So that's nothing new. It's just community that doesn't actually push that. As far as where we are is at, we're going to discuss, you keep saying the gold pedigree, but it's actually called the premium pedigree, and we will discuss that. No worries. It can be gold too, it could be platinum, however you want to look at it. But we'll get into that, and that highlights some of these things. It's a little bit difficult community because our community doesn't like to be demanded to do things, and it's very hard. And our community has a similar mentality, like, well, you know what, if I'm told to do something here, if I don't like something here, then I'm going to go over here. And that's rough. It's very hard to maintain something like that and implement things. We've implemented DNA for dogs that once they reach 5 breedings, and for dogs that achieve their grand champion titles. And even that's hard to do because a lot of people still aren't following through with that. So, I love my community, but a lot of things, there are issues with that. And it's something that we've advocated since day one, something that we have the degrees for, the certifications for, that would be on your pedigree. A lot of that falls on the breeders. ABKC has always been an advocate for health testing and has always offered the certifications to go on their pedigrees for it.
I'm going to ask this small question. Is there any way going forward at some point, just like you offered, for OFA testing and that sort of thing, also genetic testing, just as an added plus for people to know, hey, you know what? This pup that's coming to you, has that type of genetic testing?
So when we get into what we're going to discuss, we feel that's the first stage of that. And we can get further into that, but I would like to introduce the first stage of how we feel that we want to highlight that. But again, a lot of this falls on the customers as well. The client base needs to demand certain things. Number one, you need to demand a contract. This is crazy to me that people are selling dogs for astronomical amounts of money, and they're not giving you contracts, no guarantees. And the community isn't pushing for that. They don't want to miss out. They see, oh, this dog's producing dogs and the stud fee's $5,000 and his puppies are going for $10,000. Yeah. They don't want to miss out on that dog. So they're not willing to step up and say, no, I don't want to buy this from you until I have a contract. I mean, it's a very crazy time. I mean, people aren't even submitting videos and they don't let you see your dogs in person anymore. And it's becoming a situation where it's like anybody can sell anything they want for high dollar without having to stand behind it, and a lot of that falls on the community and the clientele. I would never buy a dog without a contract. And that's just the basis of it. The questions you're asking go even deeper into it. And we're not even at the phase where people are requiring, hey, is your dog DNA profile? Does your dog have, some of these issues that we're going to discuss when we discuss the premium pedigree that plague our breed? And we're not even to the level where the community is even asking for a contract or guarantee on their sale. So it's a little bit bewildering to me that we haven't gotten to where we're pushing that. And if you asking for the registry to mandate everything, that's very difficult because some of these things have to come from the consumers, the clientele.
Well, I'm not saying mandating. I'm just saying the same thing as, just OFA, just a little something signifying that it has it on there. That's all.
Well, demanding we have that, and we've always had that. That has always been available. It's just our community doesn't utilize that, but it's there. We've offered it since day one. This is part of your pedigree. If you have an OFA certification for elbow or hip dysplasia, we will add that to your pedigree so it can be seen visibly by everybody that this dog is OFA certified, dysplasia free, or whatever the case is. We're talking cardiac, anything.
You hit on many points that we've been driving in here for the last 5 years. How are you going to buy a puppy without a contract? Also, we've spoken on the components of the contract. We've spoken on DNA testing. If you're going to be buying a puppy, say for $6,500, when you want to see the most basic. But I'm going to give you an opportunity to go into our next question. And guys, I have people here asking out of line. And what I mean by that is out of topic. I got people asking about Brazilian bulls. I got people asking about other things. Let me give Dave an opportunity to talk about the platinum pedigree and how that's going to help the breed. And then you guys could actually hit questions on that. As far as Brazilian bulls, trust me, we're going to talk about it. Just wait until we're on that topic before you ask. So Dave, talk to me about the initiative that you were talking to me about, the platinum pedigree.
So I've been researching, the ABKC has been researching our breed for a while, and we're finding certain health issues in our breed that are very prevalent. And one of the biggest ones is the hearts. This breed has an issue with the hearts, going from murmurs to all the way up to severe heart deformities. So that is one of the biggest issues that plagues our breed right now. Another thing that we're really looking into is the dysplasia. We're breeding very heavy dogs, and on short frames or even on the XL, you're still breeding a very heavy dog. And some of the issues we're really seeing are dysplasia, and that's referring to the hips and the elbows, both ends of that. These are probably the three biggest issues right now with inside the American Bully breed: hips, elbows, and heart. So what we decided is we are not mandating. We do mandate DNA profiling, like I said before, for Grand Champion dogs and dogs bred more than 5 times. Again, very difficult to do mandates in our breed with the current community and the way things flow. So what we decided to do is we want to highlight dogs that are certified clear of the main issues within the breed. So what we've created now is a new pedigree that's called the premium pedigree. The premium pedigree is a completely different pedigree, completely different design. And what it is, it's for dogs that have these 4 certifications. They have to have heart, cardiac, clear hearts. They have to, same with hip dysplasia, and it can be OFA, it can be pen hip. The same with elbows. So if they have these 3 certifications, as well as they have to be DNA profiled, DNA PP profiled. So if they have all 4 of these things, then they will have a specific pedigree called the premium pedigree. And basically it's to highlight the dogs that have all of these certifications, and it's a pedigree based on health of the dog. And we feel like that is probably the best way for us to push this type of thing forward. Like I said, we've always offered it, but at least now we're offering something now that highlights the main issues, and hopefully we'll start to see people coming forward and doing this, and this will be very clear, and hopefully our community will start to say, hey, I don't want to buy a dog, or I don't want to breed to a dog that doesn't have this type of a pedigree. So it's stage 1. It's stage 1 in what you were getting at earlier.
Yes.
How far do we go? When do things become mandated? It's very difficult to say in our community, but we feel that, again, we've tried to advocate these things before. We've offered all of these things. It's there. You can have all these things on your pedigree since we started, but now you'll have a unique pedigree for dogs that fit those four things. So, and on top of that, we've added a few more certifications to the top of it that aren't mandated for that pedigree, but it's other issues in the breed. I'll tell you one: ataxia. A lot of people don't know what ataxia is, but ataxia is relevant in our breed. And I believe it actually comes from some of the Amstaff lineage in our breed.
Amstaff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge issue in the Amstaffs, and we have seen that in certain dogs in our breed. So when you look at this new pedigree, the premium pedigree, you'll see at the top all of the certifications that you can get for your dogs, and we've highlighted a few other ones that we see in our breed, ataxia being one. So that's what we feel is stage one in trying to bring the awareness and trying to help promote dogs with good, solid health.
Man, I can tell you, you could not have come to a better platform. We call ourselves the 1%ers in this platform because that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about that I feel nobody even knows. I mean, I'm just reading the comments and people are just going nuts. For example, we have a one of a kind saying, any dogs that have that now or could have it, or is it going to be for any classes? I would think it's going to be for any class, right, Dave?
Yes, it's for any class and for any breed. So yes.
Okay. In addition, Michael Higginson is saying, I'm super impressed with this premium pet idea. This is so important for the future of our breed and getting rid of the bad health traits and bad breeders. Okay, so it was just a statement. It wasn't a question. Louis DeMille says, and how much does the platinum cost? Is there going to be any additional cost for the platinum pedigree?
I believe the platinum premium pedigree is going to be in the range of $40, somewhere in that range, I believe.
Okay, very affordable.
Yeah, we will release it soon. Just so you know, we can accept the dogs now. We're just waiting on the print company to send the actual pedigree. So as soon as they come, we'll start. We'll be ready. But we are already working with people now that are starting to submit all of the certifications to us. Okay,
so you did mention ataxia. I have somebody here saying, does Embark test for ataxia? I know it does. My question to you is, in order to add ataxia on there, is there going to be a specific test we have to go through or company, or can it be validated by any company brought to the ABKC?
We will accept any company that is a validated company. I mean, obviously you have different companies that do different things. Like I mentioned before, for dysplasia, OFA and PinHip are your main companies for that. Sure. So we will accept any that is a valid company, something that is credited company for that type of testing.
Okay, so for example, Embark, would that be for the ataxia side of it? Would you?
Yes,
foresee?
Embark is a funny one because Embark definitely highlights certain things. For ataxia, they would be very good. Embark, I don't feel is correct for the actual. This is a whole nother topic, but for identifying the American Bully breed when it does breed testing on the actual breeds of dogs. And I don't agree with the way they went about to build their base of what the American Bully breed was to go by. So I don't really feel like that is accurate. But as far as their genetic health test, they are very accurate. And ataxia is one that they are an accredited source for.
Okay, excellent, man. Listen, we're going to jump on the next topic because I already know I got people asking me questions on that. I've been kind of not wanting to bring them up so we don't sidestep. Yeah. Dave, you got criticized a lot, man, when the UK decided to ban the American Bully XL. I could tell you myself, being that I'm getting my information from secondary and tertiary sources, I've been at odds, if not confounded, with statements that I saw on TV made by yourself. This is one of the reasons why, man, I really wanted you here to say your side of the story, because up to now, the only thing I got is what he said, she said, and what I saw on TV. So I'm gonna give you the floor, and I want you to, go from A through Z as to your side of everything as far as the UK American Bully ban.
Okay, because there is some truth to the negativity that I received to it, and I'll explain that. So when the ban came in forth, I have a friend over there, we have a judge named Jane. She's over in England, and her husband actually works for Sky News, which is a big news company in the UK. And as soon as I heard about it, I said, I want to go on Sky News. I want to talk about this because this is not fair. This is very discriminatory against a breed that wasn't created for this purpose. And we were setting that up. In the meantime, I got a call from the BBC, which I knew nothing about the BBC. I know it's a news station there, but I knew nothing about it. And they asked me to do an interview. So I did the interview with the BBC. And,
Yes.
you know, when they were showing me the dogs, you know, I'm sitting here and doing an interview and they're showing me videos of dog attacks, XL attacks in the UK. And as I'm watching the videos, the first one is a black dog, which is obviously a pit bull. It's a pit bull, comes running out and attacks a man. 100% this is a pit bull. The next video they show is a fawn dog, and I don't know what breed it is, but it's definitely some Mastiff type breed. You know, I don't know if it's, you know, Presa or something on that level, but it was definitely a Mastiff type breed, and a few different videos. And then I'm watching the videos and I explained, these are not American bullies. You know, what you were calling XLs, these are not American bullies, which what they were showing, they were not actually American bullies that were in these actual incidents and bite attacks that they were showing. And they asked me some more questions, and, you know, we did this interview. It wasn't live at the time. And I went to bed that night, and the next morning I woke up to a plethora of attacks. And I was like, you know, excuse my language, but what the hell happened? Why am I being attacked? And when I watched the interview, and come to find out later, the BBC does this, and we've learned since then how to work with the BBC and the games they play. What they were showing on the actual interview was American bullies, and what I'm watching, what they're showing me, are the actual dog attacks, which weren't American bullies, but what they put on the screen in their actual interview when they aired it were actual American bullies, which was one issue. Two, there are some edited things, and they didn't put the entire conversation on there. So I was misrepresented. And instead of trying to fight the BBC and trying to go out there and do all these things, I immediately said, you know what, we got to figure out what we got to do, because no matter what, we have to fight this. So immediately I started contacting breeders in the UK, and they said, you know, get a hold of this guy, Howard. He's the one leading all of this. So I got a hold of Howard, and Howard was like, you know, we need an attorney. There's a lady that we know that has an XL. She's an attorney. They call her solicitor. And he gave me her information. So then I contacted her, and we had a long conversation, and she was 100% for representing the XL in the American Bully. And so me and her started to work together. And when we worked together, we decided, you know, we would do whatever we could. And then I was introduced to Ryan from Monster Bulls, and he came on and said, you know what, I want to get involved and help you with this and help with the PR. So immediately we formulated this team, me, Ryan, and the attorney over there. What is her name? Sophie. No, not Sophie. I don't know why my brain tonight is. Yeah. Anyway, so she started working with us, and we immediately got involved and started to fight this situation the best we could. Come to find out, we were going to need to hire another level of attorney to fight this. And the next level in the UK, they have two levels of attorneys. You have solicitors, and then you have. Is it a barrister, or I don't even know the names, but there's a higher level of barrister, and we needed to hire a barrister. So this was going to cost a considerable amount of money. So what we did as ABKC is we immediately, she found the barrister we're going to use, and we as ABKC immediately put down the deposit to hire this barrister. And then we decided we need to start figuring out a GoFundMe for this. There was already a couple people raising money over there, but they were fighting with each other, and it wasn't working out. So we got involved as ABKC and said, we will oversee this. The GoFundMe, we will oversee the legal part of this. We paid the initial fees to hire, you know, the barrister for this, and we did everything. And then we come to find out we cannot have the GoFundMe because we are not UK based. So the attorney said, you know what, let me find you some people that can do that. So what they did is they found another group called Don't Ban Me, License Me. And that was headed up by a lady named Sophie. And then Sophie got involved. Don't Ban Me, License Me. They started the GoFundMe over there. And then we as ABKC started the promotion immediately, getting people to send money to that, do that. In the meantime, we're working behind the scenes with the attorneys on all the legal sides of this, how we can fight this, what we can do. And in the meantime, other breeders started getting involved from the UK. From America, and we got together and made a video with a lot of the prominent breeders of XLs in America and got that video out there, brought the awareness to the whole situation. And then we started raising the money, and it raised instantly. I mean, instantly we were over $100,000. It was a great thing. The community really stepped up and did this. In the meantime, the four of us that the group that we've talked to, Becky, sorry, is her name, who is a great attorney. Becky, me, and Ryan together every day we met, every day we would do things. Then we decided we would start putting everything out to the community. So we would do once a week, all these Instagram lives with the community, updating on the legal battle, updating them on the situation with the money, everything we could do. We got involved at that level. I went on later and did more interviews and learned the game of the media, and the media is dirty. They played a dirty game. I mean, they were trying to build on hype versus fact, and it was a knee-jerk reaction from the prime minister. I mean, the truth is there were some dog bites there, and the situation over there that we learned is XL bully was a generic term. It was a generic term used for all big dogs. You had pit bulls, you had American bullies, you had mixed breed dogs, you had different like Kanye Corsos, you had a lot of different dogs that were all running under this generic term XL bully, which was wrong. And most of the situations that you saw were actually not true XL American bullies. It was just large dogs that were causing some of these attacks. And it wasn't that many attacks. We're not talking like 20, 30. We're talking a situation of 4 or 5 incidents. And again, these dogs, 2 of them, which I saw in those videos, one was a pit bull and one was a mastiff type mix. So it wasn't really, truthfully, the XL American bully that was doing this. So when that first initial interview went out, it was wrong. And the way that they did it was completely wrong to me. They even went as far as to say that, we're interviewing Dave Wilson, who is the creator of the XL bully, which is 100% false. I am not the creator of the XL bully. I've never bred the XL American bully. And in fact, in the American bully, I'm just part of the American bully. I'm just one of the breeders who, whose line was used in the creation of the American bully. And I was obviously involved in the creation of the name and all of these things. But, it was a lot of false information that was put out there. I never stated that I was the creator of the XL American bully and never would. And again, I would never throw our breed under the bus. I was there to fight and represent for our breed. But as I said, we backed up. We got together the legal team. We raised the money. The ABKC put down the initial payment to hire the barrister. And then we started the legal battle. And the 4 of us would give out, like I said, weekly. We'd constantly on Instagram, the 4 of us, Sophie, Becky, me, and Ryan, would constantly give updates, let them know how much money was raised, where the funds were going, how we were going to be fighting this case, when the court dates were. And it lasted about a year. It was a year of battling the legal system in the UK. And it was kind of, nobody else got involved. It was kind of just basically the ABKC and the breeders in the UK and the 4 people that I mentioned, us being one. And most of my time for that year was dedicated to that. And unfortunately, it was just battle after battle, and they weren't really listening. They really didn't care, because the problem in the UK was, it wasn't that they implemented a new law. They already had a dangerous breeds act in place since the early 90s, which pit bulls were the reason they started that. And all they had to do was just add breeds to it. So there wasn't really any legal way of stopping a breed from being added to it, because it was already an existing law. So we started to fight it on the sense that this breed was added wrongly, that it shouldn't have been that way, that they had no proof of what they were calling an American bully. They weren't going on ABKC pedigrees. They weren't going on an ABKC breed standard. They were just simply going on a generic term, and any dog that looked like this type of dog over the height limit, they were calling an XL bully. So if the dog was over 20 inches, automatically it was being called an XL bully. So it was completely wrong, and it was completely discriminatory, and it was based on nothing, no actual facts. But again, the legal system, we fought it. We went to court. Finally, we had our day in court, and it just kept prolonging and prolonging. And in the end, we were not able to overturn the law. So then we filed an appeal. And, a lot of people have forgotten about this whole situation. It's done. It's over. It's been over a year. We haven't. We're continuing to fight this. We finally were granted an appeal. So we will have another day in court to appeal this situation. And hopefully this time with the appeal, it'll finally be turned over. But a lot of people don't realize that is actually what happened. That's the actual situation. I apologize for the way it first came out, but I truly was misrepresented and they truly misquoted me. And when I was on there saying this isn't an American Bully or this isn't an XL American Bully, it was because the dogs in the videos truly were not. These attacks truly were not from XL American Bullies. And that's all that really was. But after that day, I didn't even bother to start going out there and clear that part of it. It was time. We had to get to work. And that is exactly what we did. And like I said, we organized the legal team. We organized the GoFundMe. And for over a year, we communicated with the public every week. And they learned every aspect of it. And it is not over. We continue to fight this. We are still involved in this. And we are waiting on the date of the appeal. And hopefully when the appeal comes, we'll be able to overturn this, hopefully. And in the meantime, since then, we've had to fight the situation in Australia. We've had to fight the same situation in Denmark and currently fighting it in Ireland and in Scotland. So this was something that spread, and it spread quickly over the world. And it's something that we're still having to fight, and we're still working with attorneys in other countries. So it's not something that is dying right now. And it's something that the ABKC is actively involved in and has been actively involved in, like I said, since this started. And we're still doing this, and this is still going on in a lot of countries. So you don't hear a lot about this on the American side of things because we don't have this situation in America. We as ABKC were involved in fighting a lot of BSL breed legislations early on in America and helped overturn different laws. But now this is an international issue, and a lot of people have forgotten about it, which we haven't. We're still currently fighting it.
Dave, while you were talking, I was bringing up this picture, and this picture I'm bringing up, I actually made a live. I don't remember if it was last week, Friday or Monday. But this particular article is by the BBC, which is the one that interviewed you. And this is their interpretation. And if you notice down here, is even talking about Gov UK. This is their interpretation of an American Bully XL right here.
But
so
if you notice, they're actually not using the term American Bully. They're only using this generic term XL Bully, which is another problem on itself.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm sorry to interrupt that.
No, you're good, man. It just denotes everything that you were saying as to how anything above 20 inches, they're calling it an XL Bully. I got some questions for you from our platform, but before we get there, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I have long thought that part of the ban had a lot to do with the urban American culture invading, these European nations. And unfortunately, some of these people that were actually crossing these breeds, we're mainly maybe not the best to represent breeders out there. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's kind of like they don't want the American urban culture type of deal to get in, that type of deal?
I don't really see that. When you get into the court side of it, yes. But when you're into the social side of it, I really don't see that. I think the issue is there's a lot of people that are, not a lot of people, but people are breeding mixed bred dogs for protection dogs. And you have a lot of people that are crossing things that they shouldn't be crossing. You have people who are, just not knowledgeable breeders doing things, or people trying to train their dogs improperly. There's a lot of different scenarios that go on. And I think what happened in the UK was more a situation of a few certain incidents of dogs that were either raised or bred improperly. And the stigma is a little bit different because here, what we look at as far as urban is a little different there. And there is another type of air of element of the way some of these dogs were promoted over there that you don't see over here. You do see a lot of promotion that displays the dogs more an aggressive type look, whether lunging in photos or, doing bite work and things like that. And I think that sometimes can falsely portray something. And that might have been an element that added to it as far as the way they perceive the breed, because they're going on websites and they're going on these things and they're seeing some of these dogs being advertised in an aggressive manner or protective manner. And they're interpreting that as being what the breed actually is, when in actuality, it's truly not. So that could have been a factor. I'm not necessarily thinking it's truly the urban feel, but I think it's the way that some of the breeders and people over there were advertising their dogs. So that is kind of where I think played a part in the impression of the breed when it was investigated by the government. But again, it never was the American Bully. They just were running on a generic term, XL Bully. And that is a term that not only does the government have wrong, but people over there too. I mean, it is a term that was being used over there for a lot of different dogs that were not necessarily American Bullies.
Right. So it's kind of like here in the States, how in the shelters, for example, they call anything they can identify a pit bull. So to a certain extent, they were hitting anything that was large as an XL bully. I have a question here. All of a sudden I had it and I lost it. So let me.
And I just want to add one more thing to that. That whole hysteria was media driven. It was completely media driven. There were not true mass attacks of people going on over there. Like I said, you can count on one hand the actual incidents. And like I said, 2 that I saw weren't definitely not even American Bullies. So it was just a knee-jerk reaction because the media hyped this up. The BBC hyped this up into being something, the same ones that false represented me in that interview. And it was a completely media-driven hysteria. And you have a guy that was in power that time that wasn't voted into power, and his term was coming up. And I think he did a knee-jerk reaction trying to say, oh, we have this problem, and I'm going to solve this problem by banning this, and all the people are going to be happy with me because I'm making our streets safe, blah, 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 and all this nonsense. And the truth was, it wasn't even truly really an actual situation that was, something that was causing true fear. It was all made up by the media.
Media drum up, man. And we see that not just over there, we see it over here. Now, I'm going to ask this, I'm going to bring up this question from Louis DeMille. Before I do, I will tell you that one of the main knee-jerk reactions here when there was the bully ban and when we saw you being interviewed, a lot of us out here, especially in the XL community, we were asking, well, how many of these dogs have been actually registered by the ABKC? We got a lot, we get seen not just here in America, people across the pond and the UK, Ireland, and even Australia and South Africa watch us quite a bit. Louis DeMille's question is, did you register any of these dogs? Well, not him personally, but did you register any of these dogs under the American Bully Kennel Club? So were any of those dogs registered under the ABKC?
Not a single one. That's the actual reality of the situation. Not a single one. There was a campaign by a company. I don't know what they were. They were called themselves Bully Watch. And they created this whole crazy background. And it was all based on, I don't even remember the dog's name. Do you remember that dog's name? I forget the dog's name, but there was some dog that supposedly was in the XL bloodline, and it was the foundation to aggressive. And they did this whole thing. Bully Watch created this whole crazy scenario, and even that was a falsehood. So, but no, not a single dog was ABKC registered.
We have a follow-up question, which I really love this question, V. Again, I'm the genetic guy, so V Bully's team is asking, is crazy a simple DNA test would have proved that they weren't XL Bully? Was DNA or DNA testing ever brought up, or could it be brought up?
DNA testing was brought up. Pedigrees were brought up. Standards were brought up. All of these things were brought up. Believe me, on the legal battle, we tried everything possible because they were not listening to rationality. They really weren't. They didn't care to prove they were actually American Bullies. They did not care one bit about that. They didn't care if you had a pedigree to your dog. That didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything for the DNA testing. They didn't care about any of that. All they were saying is, if your dog is over this height and looks like it's related to a pit bull, you have an XL Bully and we're banning it. And none of these things they were wanting to hear. These were all parts of our arguments. And again, they ignored all of that. They were dead set on, this is what the prime minister has said, and this is what we're going to do. And I mean, it's completely inaccurate the way they did it, and it was complete discrimination. And so it's wrong. But yeah, we tried all of that, and they didn't care. They didn't care to prove. They didn't even care to know what a true American Bully was. They had no interest in understanding what the actual breed was. So they wanted to run on this generic term.
Yeah, in essence, it was pretty much a witch hunt that was fabricated through the media and through a minister. We know how dirty politics could actually play. We have a question here that's pretty important, man. And I haven't seen it, thank God. But Yagir, the movement says, do we see any bans here in America? I'm sure he's talking about outside of BSL. Do you see anything like that coming down the pipeline with us here?
So in America, I would like to say no. When we started, we all started with American Pitbull Terriers, and we had to deal with a lot of these bans, a lot of these laws. And we were able to overturn them. There's a lot of people that we worked with over the years and a lot of different attorneys. And we were able to overturn those. But what we were able to do, and not when I say we, I'm not saying Dave Wilson, ABKC. I'm saying the defense for that, the argument against that. Sometimes we were involved. Sometimes it was independent of us. And there was plenty of people that fought BSL and did great jobs that have no affiliation with us. But one of the main things was the solution. And the solution ended up being that you really can't blame any particular breed. It's wrong to do that. The solution was to hold people responsible. So it got into licensings and things like that. And once they started issuing the actual solutions, these things fell off. These bans, these legislations, breed-specific legislations, they fell off because, sorry about that. They fell off because they realized that, in America, we realize it is discriminatory and you really cannot blame any particular breed. And if you hold the owners responsible and you implement laws like licensings and things like this, this is an actual solution to the problem, and it's been proven to work. And this is something that's been brought up over and over and over again. Ohio was one of the first states that implemented these types of things, and their system that was used in Ohio has been brought up over and over again in different arguments. And I think there's a good understanding now in America that, there is no such thing as a true dangerous breed. And if you want to solve these problems, then you need to hold the owners responsible. And I don't foresee that happening again in America, although who knows? Yeah. I mean,
it all depends which way the wind is blowing as far as politics is concerned. Yeah. The dog I believe you were trying to name was Kimbo. And the reason I say that is because this question came up again from Louis DeMille. He says, Dave, my question to you is, so Kimbo was never registered under the ABKC, and any of his offspring pups from Kimbo can you verify that? Was Kimbo ever registered under the ABKC?
So check this out. I didn't know who Kimbo was until this whole situation, until this crazy bully watch people came up and they fabricated this whole thing. First of all, the dog Kimbo is not involved, nor his offspring are involved in any of these attacks in the UK. So to use this dog as the example of something is ridiculous because none of the dogs were from this dog. Kimbo himself was not ABKC registered. We did investigate that just out of the curiosity of it. And when we looked into the offspring, there were a couple dogs that stemmed off of that dog, and he's further back in the pedigree. I don't know how many, but it was not many. And we're talking a handful of dogs that stemmed off of that dog. But it's also completely irrelevant because nothing was involved in an attack there that had anything to do with dog anyway.
I get it. We have another question, and I love this because I actually, I did a study on this. In fact, we did a video immediately when the UK ban happened. You've probably done this study. I'm not sure, but if your defense wants, they could definitely watch my video. We actually made a study in the UK for the previous decade, the minute the ban came down, as to what breeds had the most attack in the UK. The reason that I concluded that it had a lot to do with the urban culture and then them not wanting the American urban culture in is because the number one dog breed to bite people in the UK for the last decade is none other than the Labrador Retriever. But the Labrador is looked at more as more of a family dog or hunting dog and that sort of thing. And it kind of falls more in line culturally with what, it's more, acceptable over there. And that leads to this, Eric Rutherford saying more people get seriously harmed by labs than bullies. That should tell us all we need to know about the ban. That's what he's referring to. We have Freddie Strivia. Is there any action to take to get the restraints lifted? Is there anything we can do right now from America in the UK, we got people in the UK that are going to be watching this. They're our second biggest market, along with Ireland. What can they do to help lift this thing?
So here's the situation. Since they already had the Dangerous Breed Act in the UK, like I said, it wasn't a new law that was created to ban the XL Bully. It was just able to add other breeds to this. Removing a breed from that is very difficult because it's not truly through the actual legislation. It's difficult. And in the scenario that you were talking about with the Labradors, you know, we as ABKC, we got involved since day one. Like I said, we got involved in the legal side and hiring the attorneys and forming the committee and forming the public relations and helping orchestrate the GoFundMe and all of these things. However, we were not the sole people that were doing everything. We had experts from all over help us with every type of scenario you could think of. What you referred to definitely was brought up, and so many other scenarios that are even more, proving than just that, this is ridiculous. They just weren't willing to listen to it. And as far as what can be done now, it's very difficult. I mean, public awareness is a great thing. You can always help the public understand, taking your dogs out in places and teaching people the true nature of the breed and things like that to try to help public awareness. But as far as the legality of it, there's really not much. Their government is a lot different than our government. And you don't have as much opportunity to fight things as we have in the States. And even in this situation, we can't even fight it on the aspect of saying this is unjust or this is discriminatory or this is wrong. We have to fight it in saying the way they did it was wrong. And it's the only way that we are even able to fight this. And I don't really know. I mean, the funds have been raised. The legal battle, the team is still there. The appeal is in waiting right now. I mean, it's been granted. When it's going to happen, we don't know. And we don't know what more can be done. I mean, we have a great legal team, trust me. And I apologize, Becky, if you end up watching this for forgetting the name early, but I love you, Becky. You're the best. But the legal team is unbelievable. The barrister, everything, they have unbelievable teams. So you have a great team fighting this. It's just a matter of who the judge is of the day. And if that judge is willing to be a dog person and say, yeah, this is wrong or not. So the fight is still going on, and I don't really know what more the public can do other than just raise public awareness.
Okay, yeah, definitely. That's what my guy Jay Gear is asking. Other than positive interactions, what can we do to promote positive outlook moving forward in the breed? I see a statement by Bazoo. He says we need proper media representatives / leadership for the breed for any dog to truly translate what this dog is about. The way I see it, and Dave, maybe you could give us a little insight. I definitely don't know how their government works. In fact, I have a hard time understanding ours here, so much less would I want to delve in how they do things over there. But it almost seems like the minister or I guess he was the prime minister, he kind of just pointed the finger at our breed and kazam, poof, that's it, it's banned. I don't know if you know, but I would like to ask you, is that the proper way in doing things over there? Did he overstep a step? Anything you could give us?
I'm just as confused as you are.
Okay.
It's not like anything I've ever dealt with before. I mean, normally you have ways to bring up hearings and challenge things, and the system we have in America is flawed as it is. It's definitely more for the people than it is over there. And it's kind of sad because the people don't really have the say that we have within our judicial system. And even in ours, like you said, it's flawed, and we're still, not comfortable with it and feeling that sometimes it may be biased. But over there, it's a lot worse. It's definitely a lot worse. And again, it wasn't even a matter of going to court and saying we want to ban these dogs. They just added it to the list. That's all they did. They said we have this existing law in effect that's been in effect since the 90s. And when we want to declare a breed as being an aggressive breed, we just add the breed to the list. And again, they didn't even add a breed. Like I said, they added a term. That's the crazy thing about it, is there's no such thing as XL Bully. That's not a breed. The breed is American Bully, and the variety of that breed is XL. There's no such thing as XL Bully. That's a generic term. And they banned a generic term with a generic reasoning, like you just saw. If your dog is over this height and has this type of a look, that's what we're considering. And even who are the people to even make this decision? It's just, there's a name for them. It's similar to the police, but these are the people that they're not even trained. They have no training on anything on the breeds or anything. They just read this paper and say, yep, your dog is 21 inches. And I feel, yep, it has a look. Okay, you're an XL Bully. You're banned. It's completely ridiculous. I mean, truly. And
you mentioned, Dave, how the fire kind of expanded, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, obviously part of the UK, and it eventually got to Ireland. And also you had to kind of fight it as well in Denmark. Where are we at as far as this whole situation? Would you say with the rest of Europe? Do you think, they kind of decided to take it more into the owner's responsibility route with licensing and that sort of thing? Or do you think, they're going to continue to further bash, the breed based on just a term?
Unfortunately, what I'm learning is that Scotland and parts of Ireland that follow the UK law basically follow suit with what the UK does, what England does. So they kind of really just sit back and say, if it's done there, then we're doing it here. And it's kind of sad. Not for all of Ireland, because, Ireland is different. It's not all, under the UK law, only part of Ireland is. So the part that is, they just kind of follow suit with what the UK said. And the same goes into Scotland, and that's kind of hard. Denmark is a different situation. In Denmark, it's a situation where we haven't lost, but we haven't won. They're doing very strange things. Like if you can show, and this is something very important to American breeders, because we don't do this. If you can show 3 or 5 generations of microchipping,
they want it all.
They want to see in your entire pedigree. They want to see every dog has been microchipped. And if you have that, they're releasing your dogs, which is crazy because a microchip really doesn't mean anything. I mean, in actuality, it doesn't mean anything other than ownership of a dog, really. But we're having situations over there where a lot of people have bought dogs, and we're referring to Denmark at the moment. A lot of people have bought dogs from the States, and in the States, microchipping isn't truly a big thing. But internationally, microchipping is huge. Everybody does it. So people who have bought dogs from the States, or the ancestry has come from the States within the first 3 generations, and they're missing microchips, then they're taking and seizing the dogs, which is really crazy. But I don't know. And all I can tell people is microchip. But even still, some of the dogs that came from the States, they don't even recognize our microchip numbers. So they didn't even say that those were legitimate. So it's a whole nother scenario that to me is just completely ridiculous, because what the heck does a microchip have to do with the purity of a dog? That should be on a DNA test or a pedigree or one of these things. Microchipping simply just identifies the owner of the dog, and some of them record vet things, so, but that's what's happening in Denmark.
I think it appears to be more of an obstacle than anything else. Let me tell you, Dave, we're going to get into Merles. Before we do, I want to ask you a question, and then we're going to go into a little 30-second commercial, and then we're going to go deep dive into Merles. Okay. I just want to ask you, Dave, for you, is Merle a color or is it a pattern?
100% a pattern. Merle is an actual pattern. Color, you have different color variations of Merle, but the actual term Merle is referring to the pattern. Similar to like brindle. How brindle's a pattern. You have different colorations of brindle. Same with Merle. It's a pattern. And before we go to commercial, please, I'd like to say, for anybody that saw that, I do apologize. That interview, the initial interview, I would never, ever turn my back on our breed. And I would never, ever claim to be a creator of the XL Bully. Those were falsehoods. And I've done my best to do everything I can since that moment to fight over there in the UK. And I've dedicated a lot of time. So anybody that saw that and thought that was the situation, it truly wasn't. But either way, I do apologize on the fact that the media was able to do that to me. But again, it was a new situation for me. And I've actually been able to handle the media since that day. But now I know the tricks of the trade, unfortunately.
Well, I'm glad you were able to clear the air for us. Guys,
Yeah.
stay tuned for this commercial. We're coming back with Dave Wilson. We're deep diving into Mark.
Guys, real quick, let me talk to you about Nuvet and NuJoint Plus. This is a multivitamin. This is joint support. Many people out here have done before and after pictures showing you the improvement that this alone brings to the table. If you're feeding kibble, if you're feeding raw, there could be some insufficiencies that are actually causing structural issues to your dog. Wouldn't you want to correct that? This is just it. The multivitamin that'll do it for you is Nuvet and also joint support with NuJoint Plus. I recommend both bottles. We're going to go ahead and leave a link in the descriptions below. Now let's get back to it.
All right, guys, we're back to it. We're going to deep dive into Merles. I see a lot of you are dropping questions that are on subjects that we already hit before. Do me a favor, stay on topic. His time is valuable, so is mine. We're trying to answer all the questions, but we need you to stay on topic. If we're now deep diving into Merles, please don't start asking about the UK ban. Don't be asking about the platinum pedigree or the beginning of the ABKC. We're already past that. Dave, Merles, they have been around for a minute. They are allowed to register into the ABKC until not so long and only register as blotched, and they weren't allowed to come into the show ring. However, just shortly, I would say maybe within the last 10 days or a week, I found out that the ABKC is going to be allowing Merles into the ring. Can you give us insight on that?
My least favorite topic is the Merle. And let me start by saying I am not an advocate for or against the Merle. I am, a spectator of the Merle, And a lot of people have said a lot of things that are false. A lot of people would like to argue and say Dave is lying. The Merle hasn't been here since day one. And a lot of people like to say the ABKC is only considering Merle for financial reasons. And I'll get into that, why that is also a falsehood. So when we started the ABKC, there were Merle American Bully breeders. Whether or not you want to challenge the history, yes.
Okay.
Whether or not you want to challenge the history of where the Merle came from, it's a little bit irrelevant because whatever dogs are entered into your stud books are the base of a breed. And in the American Bully, we know that a lot of the dogs were registered American Pitbull Terriers. We know that there's some bloodlines that have some elements of other breeds behind them in the American Bully. The bottom line is when you start a new breed, you bring in the initial dogs, the brood stock of the breed. These are the dogs that make up your stud books. So regardless of the ancestry behind anything, the actuality is everything brought in is the basis, the foundation of a breed. When a breed reaches its purity is generations after that from the initial dogs, the initial brood stock, the stud books, and breeding generations of that breed to that where, those registered dogs to those registered dogs. And eventually you reach purity of a breed. So in the beginning, all your initial dogs that come in, it's kind of irrelevant, the ancestry, because it's the generations that follow that achieve the purity of a breed. So now we'll get into that. There were Merle breeders, and a lot of these Merle breeders came from the UKC, from the American Pitbull Terrier. When the UKC stopped allowing and banned Merles for registration and showing, a lot of people went underground, or they just simply didn't put Merle on their pedigrees. Now, we're not talking a large number of people. This is a very isolated group of people. Some of them were in our group, the Elite Edge. The thing is, the Merle was not popular in the beginning phases of the American Bully. The breeders existed, but it just wasn't popular. It was wasn't looked down on. It wasn't frowned upon. It just merely was, like a few isolated breeders, kind of like a niche type thing, in the American Bully breed. Nobody really said anything about it. And we went on for generations. The ABKC was started in 2004. I think the UKC implemented their change on the Merles probably in, just throwing a number out there, 2009. So don't quote me exactly, maybe 10, when they made this decision. At that time, the ABKC, the American Bully, had already existed for 8 to 10 years. Sorry, my math is wrong, but whatever the math is, from 2004 to 2010, 6 years, and nobody really cared about it. It wasn't popular, but it wasn't frowned upon. It was just there. We had breeders, and the term they used was a term they chose. They chose to use the term blotched. As you know, Merle is a term for this type of dog, but in different breeds, it's considered a different term. Like when we're dealing with the dachshunds, they use the term, what's the term in the dachshunds? Dappled. Sorry, my brain doesn't always work. Where we're dealing with the Great Dane, they use the term Harlequin. So there's different terms used for the word merle. A lot of the original Pitbull breeders that had that called it blotched. People can argue that it didn't come from the Pitbull, but there were Pitbull breeders. You can even reference old Stratton books. You could talk to, oh God, the guy breeder from, I'm getting old now, from New Orleans, Floyd Boudreaux. Boudreaux, if you ever had talks with him, he would tell you that, in the mix of their dogs, they use something called a something cur, like Tennessee cur, or I forget what it was, but they were merle dogs in the mix of their original pit bull. So merle says here and there dotted the American Pit Bull Terrier. You can argue it. I don't care, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm just telling you history that I've seen and learned over the years. And actuality is probably irrelevant. So anyway, they're around. UKC made their stance. And a few years later, the American Bully community pushed to remove it. And they decided they wanted to follow with what the UKC said. Not necessarily for the same reasons, but more like, oh, let's just follow suit with them. So we had a panel inside of ABKC that voted on many topics. It was a lot of the senior judges, Ron Ramos, Rolando Mata, there's Susan Fedrosa. There's a bunch of people on this panel, and merle was one of the topics. And the vote came out that they wanted to remove merle for competition. I actually didn't even vote for that. I voted to keep the merle because I felt like it's been here since day one. Why are we removing it? Why are we following UKC? The same people that pushed us aside, but I lost the vote. And so at that moment in 2012, I believe, again, don't quote me exactly, is when we changed the standard and said it's a DQ, that we're not allowing it in the show. However, we grandfathered it in for registration. So there was never a time that you could not register merles blotched with the ABKC. That brings me to the topic of the financial aspect of it. ABKC does not make money on dog shows. If you know how ABKC works, the hosts make all the money on the dog shows. Right. We do not. We don't. Anything that's charged there goes directly to the host. It doesn't go to us. When we started this, we wanted shows to be affordable and to spread. So we didn't put on any added expenses from ABKC. The judge and the rep fees go directly to the judge and reps, and all of the intake comes into the host. So there's no money to be made on ABKC as far as showing. Registration is the only part that ABKC gets any revenue from. So the merles were never not able to register. So the financial side of registering merles has always been the case. So there was no change ever made that helped the ABKC bring in more money or is done for financial aspects, because we would have made that money anyway since the beginning of time, because we allowed the registration. So that went on for a long period of time. And I think in 2020 is when a lot of merle breeders started to really push back and say, we've been breeding these dogs for generations and we have quality dogs. We want to be able to compete. Why are we allowed to register, but we're not able to compete? This is wrong. So they started to push back. And at first it wasn't a large part of our community, but as time went on, it became a large part of our community, really pushing back. And this topic became a hot community topic for many years. And whether you're on one side of it or the other side, it's a community topic. It's a divided community. I am a spectator. I watch all aspects of it. And, you can look at it from many different avenues. The merle is associated with health defects. However, the health defects that are associated with merle are done. The testing has been done on a lot of breeds that already have health defects. Like the Great Dane, for instance, is one of the main breeds that they've done the research to merles on. But the Great Dane is an overbred breed with a million problems. You could also look at the scenario with the Catahoula leopard dog. This was a breed that's a working breed that was completely merle for many generations. Now, we're even talking merle to merle, which is a taboo in the merles, but yet you have a breed that was created to be a completely merle breed that doesn't have the same health defects as these other merle breeds do. So it's a very strange topic when you really dig into it. And when you really trace the lineage of the original merle into the Pitbull or to the American Bully, you're looking at the same lineage as what's behind the Alapaha or possibly even the Alapaha. So it's a crazy topic. And, and again, I'm a spectator. So I'm not here telling you it's good or bad. I'm just telling you what people have brought to the table and what I've observed, And it's been a topic that's been going on for years. Anyway, 2020, the push came, and it's been going on for a few years. And this past year, we said, we're going to allow Merles at nationals in a showcase so that it's kind of like a fun show.
Yep.
You're able to bring your Merles out to nationals, display your Merles. It's not the official show, it's a showcase. And this gives the breeders an opportunity to show their dogs and show the quality of the dogs. And it gives the public an opportunity to see this for themselves. Unfortunately, not many dogs showed up. We said at the end of the year, we were going to do a vote, and then not many dogs showed up at nationals. So we kind of postponed the vote. The situation then came is that a lot of breeders in Europe, where Merle is actually larger, really said we didn't have an opportunity. We couldn't get to nationals. We really want to have the opportunity to have this vote. And a lot of them have proven themselves. You know, what we've learned over the years is that a lot of the Merle breeders are more knowledgeable on genetics than a lot of the other breeders. They really study the genetics because they know what they can and can't do with their dogs. And just to the argument of saying, if we allow this, then all these horrible dogs are going to be produced and all of this. Well, the thing is, we have allowed it for breeding. So the worst scenario has already been in place since day one. Yeah. We are not allowing the best representations to enter the show ring. We are only allowing the backdoor side of it, the breeding side of it. So if you were going to see all of these issues that people are expecting to happen from allowing Merles, we would have been seeing this because we never stopped it. So the argument is, let them into the show ring, because now when you're entering the show ring, now you're giving the best representations an opportunity to display themselves. And this also helps breeders see the top quality and could improve the quality of it. But again, it's never not been allowed for breeding. So they've done a pretty damn good job of proving that they can work with this gene without issues. And you can argue it however you want to argue it. Again, like I said, I'm just on the fence spectating the whole thing. But truth be told, you're not seeing a lot of these issues overall. And there is no reason why you're not. The reason you're not is because these breeders are really doing a good job in most cases, and most of them are definitely into the genetics more so than a lot of other breeders. They really study and know their genetics. And then when we get into the XL, you know, this is your community, and I'm not as knowledgeable with the XL because most XLs don't really come to the dog shows. It's not really the biggest thing that's done in the XL community. But I've seen so many amazing, phenomenal XL Merles, better than what I'm seeing at the dog shows. It's unreal. Like, I mean, this is a true story. Like, I've really seen some gorgeous XL Merles, gorgeous. And they don't have an opportunity. They're not coming to the shows because they can't show. So there's no purpose in them being there. So our XL community is actually missing out on seeing some great quality dogs simply because they're not allowed to show. So this year, and I guess we decided to have the vote at the beginning of April. So we had the vote. We have a panel of 7 on our internal panel. We had the vote. The vote was 5-2 to allow it to compete. We decided, you know what, let's take it another step. Let's bring it up to our judges and let our judges vote, just because we want to add another layer to this. And when the judges voted, it was 68% to allow them. So what we decided is we are going to allow them for the remainder of this year to compete. Since the showcase did not work at nationals, since the idea of doing fun shows is not truly appealing, we're going to allow that. Now, I know some people say that's not fair. What's happening if at the end of the year you decide to revoke that and dogs have titles and things like that? Well, first of all, if that were the case, which we hope it isn't the case, we really hope the Merles show out, you know, and show up, show out, you know, but we would not be removing any titles. We would not be doing any of that. The dogs that did title during the time would be able to maintain their titles. It would only revert back to the way it's been, registration, but not competition. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully that they come out and they really prove that, you know, they are worthy of this. And, you know, and that's what it is. And again, like I said, we are community-based registry, and we do listen to the community. And in this case, there was a vote. And this was the time that the vote actually swayed the other way. So this is where we're going with it.
You know, Dave, here on my platform, I like to play devil's advocate all the time, man. So, you know, my question to you, and I'm sure as many people want to know, what needs to happen for this to remain permanent, or what needs to happen for it to be revoked? Or are you guys just going to vote on it, say at the end of the year? How does that going to be working?
It's going to be a vote, but I can tell you this. If the quality is not there in the ring and you're seeing low quality dogs or low numbers, you might take the risk that the vote will go the other way. Probably not, because it was a pretty high percentage that voted for it. If the quality and the quantity is there, you have a very, very strong chance that this will not be revoked and it will remain, it will remain in place. So I think it all really is based on the quality and quantity. If the dogs come out and they're there, I don't think anybody's going to reverse their opinion on it. It's more if you're just not seeing the dogs and you're not seeing any quality, that you stand the risk of people saying, you know what, I'm changing my vote on this. But I think it's based on quality and quantity. Let
me send a message to everyone that has the ability to vote on that. Just keep in mind that the Merle has not been allowed to compete. The fact that you guys are going to allow them to compete is actually going to increase competition. Unfortunately, it takes more than a year to be able to, breed consistently and improve stock. I just want to throw that out there. Hopefully it sinks into their mind, and hopefully the Merle community, which is the only reason why I actually bred to a Merle, was because they convinced me that they're heads over heels ahead of the rest of the American Bully community as far as knowledge on genetics and genetic testing. Quick question by Christian Wyraheta. I hope I said it correct. Can DNA testing detect the Merle gene in a dog if the pattern does not show on the dog? And the answer is absolutely yes. And that's the reason why you want to test every puppy out of a Merle litter, particularly when they're either fawn or fawn with intensity, because usually that covers up the Merle pattern. And, you're buying a pup thinking it's not a Merle, and you're breeding it to a Merle, and you end up creating a disaster. So just wanted to throw that out there. We have a couple of questions here. Michael Higginson is asking, will Merles only be allowed to compete against their own, or will they be allowed to compete against non-Merle dogs in the registry, Dave?
They will fall into the regular categories. They will be based on their variety, nothing more. So they will pocket, standard, XL, or classic.
Okay, excellent. Also, I want to thank you, man, because you clarified something for me that I was never aware of. I didn't come into this breed until 2015, late 2015 for that matter. I did not know that American Bully, that Merles were allowed to register as American Bullies at one time. So I'm glad you clarified that for us, because a lot of times when we see it as something new coming in, because my history is only from 2015 till now, it doesn't make any sense. It kind of seems like we're just bringing it along now. Now that you're giving me this explanation, it definitely extinguishes, a lot of doubts and a lot of things I had going on.
That's something that people accuse me of lying to. Dave's lying. They weren't around since day one. I even had a interview with Bully the Kid where I brought in the original Merle breeders so people could see who they really were, and I don't know how to do any more to show people that this really was the case. And the best way to really explain this is, if you really understand, it's been blotched with ABKC since day one, and that is, you can prove that fact, that it's been able to register since day one, and that we've always called them blotched. So, but yes, they have been around. Like I said, they just weren't around in the numbers that they exist today. And the crazy thing is, sometimes when you make something taboo, it becomes more popular, which is crazy. Oh, yeah. I think the Merle, that's right. I think the Merle has become more popular because it's not fully accepted. Which is a crazy thing that happened with the exotic, to be honest with you. I was completely against the exotic, and when we stood strong against the exotic, it became more popular. Crazy. I think, like, when something became taboo, it almost brought more attention and more interest in it, which
it's almost, it's in American history. It happened during Prohibition. We made a law where you couldn't drink alcohol, and it's when alcohol was mostly consumed in this country. I mean, it's just the way it works, man. Dave, listen, we're going to jump in to probably one of the hottest topics on the board. We're going to jump into the Brazilian bulls. I will have about, I want to say 2 weeks ago on our Monday cast. I was calling for two things, and I want you to talk about it. I was calling, first of all, for the separation of the Pit Monster to the American Bully XL, because I, as an American Bully XL breeder, realized that first of all, we don't have the consistency that maybe we need, and that I almost felt invaded initially. I went ahead and interviewed Aria, saw her Pit Monster. Not just that, she had DNA testing, embark on every single one of her dogs. She showed me everything that was there. Aria, if you're watching, I appreciate you showing me that. And the story behind the Brazilian Bull, to me, is one where I kind of feel when the American Bully XL was brought along, we kind of zigged when we should have zagged. And what I mean by that is Mastiffs from all walks of life were probably brought in and mixed with the American Bully. And thus, this is why today I feel, as a whole, not every single, there's always an exception, but as a whole, there is a massive influence in the American Bully XL. Whereas when I've seen the Brazilian Bulls and I've seen that they've gone ahead with, when they went to a bigger breed, they didn't go to a Mastiff. They actually went to an American Bulldog, which is the biggest of the bully breeds. I kind of feel that they got it right. Okay. And so on Friday, I made another live and I said, you know what? It doesn't matter. Bring them in, because what's going to happen is they become basically the new standard of the American Bully, because they look more bully than the American Bully XL does at this time. Irregardless whether they were their separate breed or brought in together, I feel that competition is going to make us change and improve the American Bully XL. I'm going to leave the floor to you to explain to us, how do you feel about it and how it's come about?
All right. Well, first, let me start off by saying I am not the expert on the Brazilian Bully, nor am I the expert on the XL. I am not the expert on the history of it. I am not a founder or a creator of it. I'm simply a president of a registry that gave it a home. So a lot of what I've learned over the years and a lot of what I've learned recently has been crash courses on a lot of things. So let me start with this. I said this earlier when we were talking about the Merles, and when you create a breed, the initial stock into the breed can come from other elements. In the American Bully, we know in all varieties, there are other breeds behind the American Bully, whether it was hidden, whether it was a lie, whatever the case was, that was brought into the breed. We all know that somewhere in the XL, there's got to be some lineage of Mastiff and other type of maybe American Bulldog or larger Bulldog type breeds. We know in the American Bully standard and pocket, there's some element of other Bulldog type breeds. None of these were my doing, but it's there. And so when you have brood stock and you start your stud books, whatever these dogs are the initial dogs that are the foundation behind the breed. What happens after that is what constitutes a breed. It's breeding towards a standard, breeding the registered dogs to each other, and breeding for a look and type and all of these things. And it takes generations until you achieve purity. In the American Bully, I wouldn't say that we were a pure breed until after 2010. I said all of these things earlier, and that's the way I feel. So whatever was brought in behind these dogs is the makeup of these dogs. The concept behind the American Bully is once the breed gave its registration and the stud books opened and all the brood stock came in, what was supposed to happen from that point on is ABKC registered dogs should only be bred to ABKC registered dogs. And that is how you start the generation towards purity and a certain look. So we did not want to allow any other breeds to be mixed into the American Bully that weren't already mixed in its inception. So the XL is one of the varieties. Once the XL was recognized and accepted for registration, then there should be no other crossbreeding of any breed from that point on. Whatever it was is what it was, but there shouldn't be any. Now you should breed towards the standard, and you should breed registered dogs to registered dogs. And again, breeding that direction is how you create purity. So that's how the American Bully was. For a long time, we accepted UKC registered dogs for single registration into the American Bully. This applies to all varieties, XL being one. The Pit Monster stuff was not early on anything going on in the American Bully breed. From what I've learned, the Pit Monster actually started with XL American Bullies, and then they went on and bred other things. So it's a touchy situation. Some Pit Monster dogs have gotten into the XL American Bully through registration until recent years, when we started seeing and were able to identify F1s and dogs that had Mastiff or whatever other breed, doesn't really matter, within the generations that we could see. We stopped allowing for registration because we said this is something that we do not allow anymore in the American Bully. Now, obviously, people can fake pedigrees, and you're never going to stop people from lying and doing. You can put measures in there, but it's almost an impossibility to completely stop a dishonest person. But what I'm saying is the way it's supposed to work. So the way it's supposed to work is we did not want to allow any dogs into recent times through single registration that had recent generations of other breeds in the mix, which the Pit Monster started showing later on. So we stopped allowing those dogs to register as American Bullies, XLs. And we flagged that, and we flagged the Brazilian pedigrees. Initially, we didn't because they weren't doing it in the beginning. Then that thing went on for a few years by itself. Doing research, we researched that there's two sides of this. There's the there's the Pit Monster, and then there's the Brazilian Pit Monster. Two different styles of breedings that we are now learning, and a lot of these breeders have started talking to us. One style is more similar to the American Bully. The other style is a little bit larger, more of a protection style, both running under the similar flag name Pit Monster, Brazilian Pit Monster and Pit Monster. They came to us a couple years back. Aria is one of the main people that I've talked to over the years, and wanting to know what could be done to acknowledge them as a separate breed. The first thing I said is you need to change the name, because with all the stigma around these dogs, just the terminology pit and monster, it's not going to go well. It's not something that we want to represent in ABKC. We know that the name alone creates bad stigma, and there's already negative stigma towards XLs and all these other things that have gone on. I suggested them a couple years ago, why not use the name Bully Brasileiro? You know, I that was a suggestion I made, and I hadn't heard back for a few years. And then in this past year, all of a sudden people started coming forward, and a lot of breeders started coming forward and say, we really want recognition in ABKC. We want representation in ABKC. This year they came to us and said, we have decided on the name Brazilian Bull. Would you all accept the Brazilian Bull? We said we will accept it with its own pedigree, provided it has, you know, a unified standard, and that once we've accepted it, those dogs can only be bred to other Brazilian Bulls, ABKC registered, and no more of these breedings will continue with other breeds. And that is how we would accept the breed. It's a touchy situation because it's kind of like, you look at it like this. They're doing in recent generations what the XL American Bully did in past generations. So it's a fine line of how you look at this thing. And like you said, some of them, the XL Bully could utilize because they're still doing things with other breeds that maybe we're still needing in our breed. But the bottom line is that was past generations in the XL American Bully. It's up front in the Brazilian Bull. We as ABKC can't open the door and say, okay, we're going to accept this into the American Bully, because this is already a completed breed as far as its genealogy is, as far as its stud books are concerned. So we have to look at it through a different lens and say, you know what, this is a new breed, and it's something that's very similar concept, but the fact that it's gone through recent generations where the American Bully shouldn't have gone through recent generations of other breeds, we have to look at this differently. So we are willing to accept it as its own breed with its own standard. However, we are not closing the door to the future, because once this breed reaches purity and they're no longer doing that, it might very well be that it is that similar and that close that we can merge the two. We don't know. It's just not something that we should close the door on and say never. That possibility might remain, and it might be something that we look at in the future, and we look at it like we've looked at other situations, and we would have to, speak to the XL American Bully community and the Brazilian Bull community. It would be something that the community would have to be involved in. I can't guarantee that that's the case. I'm just saying that's a possibility. But as of right now, we are going to accept this. We no longer will accept them. It's been a few years that we really haven't accepted them for registration into the American Bully stud books. So we're going to accept it as a separate breed with its own standard, and we're going to allow it for competition. Within ABKC, you are not able to breed another breed into this. Whether their house registries still allow F1s and things like that, it's a different topic, but that's not going to be allowed within ABKC. So it's a situation that we've looked at, and we've come with this decision that we're going to accept it as its own breed with its own standard, and we're going to let the breed evolve into its purity within the ABKC side of it. And, we will relook at it, 5-6 years down the road and see, was this the correct idea? And is this the way it's going to continue, or is there's, do we need to relook at this or revisit this? But this is the way we're going to do it for now.
I think it's very positive. I told you, I think competition, at least for the American Bully XL, is going to propel us forward. You can no longer sit out here with a dog that isn't as bully and think that you're going to be able to compete. That's just me. Listen, I have somebody that's speaking, I don't want to say out of line, but this is how rumors and things get going. Now, Dave already said from his mouth that he had nothing to do with the American Bully XL. But nonetheless, Dave, I want you to answer Genesis Legacy Kennels. They're saying, so what is in the American Bully that you created from your mouth to our ears? So they're not referring exclusively to XLs. They're referring to just the Bully in general. So
it's a story that's not completely my story. I started out as Razor's Edge, and I bred American Pitbull Terriers. Actually, I started with American Staffordshire Terriers and had issues with a breeder that wouldn't give me paperwork, AKC, and I had to single register my dogs with the UKC as Pitbull. So I was kind of forced from the AKC into the UKC. And I bred American Pitbull Terriers for many, many years and generations. And that's where my line and everything grew. And as I said earlier, when they changed their standard, I had no place for my dogs anymore. And I wasn't willing to change my style to fit their trend, or what I felt was their trend. But we also have to look at the other side of the breed. There's a whole separate side of the breed that isn't Razor's Edge and didn't come from me. And that is the side that stems from Greyline, Gotti, Do Good, all of these dogs, and Butthead, and some of these all these other Dela Cruz and all these other XL dogs. That's not my story. I'm not the breeder of any of those dogs. I can't tell you what any of them used in the mix and what their story is. I can only tell you that when we brought everything together to be the American Bully, my line was brought in, these other lines were brought in, and then from that forward, we move forward into breeding American Bullies to American Bullies, and breeding to the standard, and that is how we achieved the purity of the breed where we are today. As far as what are the actual dogs behind those dogs, I'm not the source for that. It's not my story. There's a documentary I see that just came out recently that tells a lot of their stories. I would have to refer back to the original breeders of those dogs to answer those questions. My job was stud books moving forward and the purity of the breed from that point on. So I cannot answer that. I can only speculate that some of the dogs had some type of bulldog, whether it was an oldie or whatever, and some of the XLs had some type of Mastiff or American Bulldog. But I'm just a speculator like everyone else because it wasn't from my hands, a lot of these bloodlines.
Real quick, we have Daddy Lore. He's saying, so what about those Brazilian bulls registered as XL, the ones that have already been registered as XLs? Will they continue to be XL, or will they revert back to being Brazilian bulls?
We're moving for the present to the future. We're not going back. It would take too much to try to clean that up and get into all that. And again, some of them were dogs that stem straight from XL American Bullies, and some of them were different. So we kind of looked at it as, we're grandfather clausing it. From this moment on, once we made the decision to separate the breeds, anything that's already in the system as what it is what it is. And again, we're looking at the future of those dogs can only be bred to those dogs, or these dogs can only be bred to these dogs. So we're not going to be going back and trying to figure out what was what and how is what. It's just we're moving forward. If they were registered as XL American Bullies, then they will remain XL American Bullies, and we just move forward from there.
Fair enough. We have Adam Fields asking, what is the height max of the XL or Brazilian Bull? I've seen some tall dogs in the ring. Could we perhaps wicket the dogs at a show by a judge and put the height on their pet?
So there's three different things here. The Brazilian Bull, you'll have to read the pedigree. The pedigree. You have to read the standard. That has just been submitted to me the other day, and we will release that so you can see the heights on that. The height for the XL American Bully is listed on the website. You can see that. We do measure dogs and wicket dogs. In some cases, the situation with the XL in the ring is this. And you all, if you've been to the shows, you can tell the quality and the consistency in the XL is not really there. Out of the varieties, it's the variety that still needs the most work. We are not DQing dogs that exceed the height, unless they're way exceeding. Like if we're talking 5 inches or more, then yes, that's a definite, you would DQ the dog. When you get into slight variances, it's going to be pointed against on the dog, but it's not going to be a disqualification. And in many cases, when you're dealing with the inconsistency of quality in the ring, you might have a dog that is slightly above what the standard calls for and is pointed against, but in a situation where the other dogs are lacking in so many other areas, that
right.
dog might still be a dog that could win because its flaw may not be as great as the other dog's flaws in the ring, or it may represent the variety so much better in its breed type and other aspects that that element isn't going to carry as much weight as another dog that is right within the height requirement, but is lacking so much in breed type or carrying too many flaws or something like that. So until you really have a strong consistency of quality, it's a little bit difficult to get so strong on a couple inches variance in the height. That's a little bit far-fetched at this moment to say, hey, you're half inch over, you're disqualified. No, 5 inches, yeah, definitely, but 1 to 2 inches, they're still allowed in the ring. It's not a DQ, it's pointed against.
All right, Dave, we're coming up on one of our last question. Adam Fields is saying, how do you single register a dog? How are you protecting the stud books? And I'm going to follow that up with, and I already know the answer because we spoke on it, but we've spoken on that so much on this platform. Why are the stud books still open?
So here's the thing. Let's look at it like this. To say a breed is established in its stud books in 20 years, it's impossible. There's just not enough dogs in the gene base to support that breed in 100 years. The gene base would be too small at that point. You can look at the American Staffordshire Terrier. The American Staffordshire Terrier came from 3 strands of the American Pitbull Terrier, and it bred over 70 years to get the American Staffordshire. So they left their stud books open for 70 years of development before it became the American Staffordshire Terrier. And we're only talking a breed that was created from 3 strands of the American Pitbull Terrier and nothing else. To think that you can close the stud books on a new breed in a period of 20 years, it's way too soon. It's just not enough dogs in the gene base to sustain the breed in the future. It's just not there. So you have to keep the stud books open for a longer period of time, but you get more selective over time of what you're entering and what you're allowing into the stud books. And in this case, the stud books, you're not getting many dogs anymore that are single registered. The breed is there. And then unfortunately, I would like to see more dogs, but they don't exist. So you're not getting many that are still doing it, and we're very selective over what the dogs are that are still being entered. We were at one point going on UKC pedigrees, but even that changed when the UKC allows anything to be registered as an American Bully and no rhyme or reason, and so we even had to get stricter on that. So I would say that the stud books will remain open for at least 20 more years, but the amount of dogs is getting less and less as time goes on that you're allowing into the stud books.
That's fair enough. I just brought in my guy, Michael Higginson. He just joined us in the conversation. I don't know if you recall, he was actually reporting for us when you were in Nationals, and he's talked to you quite a few times. Mike, is there anything you want to say? We're about to head out of here.
Yeah, I knew it was coming to an end. Dave, pleasure, man, doing the interview at Nationals, man. You spoke out for QBN and what was going on there that day. Loved the show. Loved it the year before. 2023 was probably the best showdown I've ever seen in a show. I was honored to be there. I really enjoyed it tonight, man. I feel like a lot of people wanted to know how you felt, and I'll be the first to admit there's definitely a loss in the chain of command. There's definitely a gap between what was actually done and what trickled down into the community and what we heard happen on a lot of these topics, and we were misinformed. And so and I'll be the first to admit it, but we only heard what we could hear, right? And so to hear your take and to hear you break down all these separate issues, man, it was a big deal for me. I am behind you and everything you spoke on tonight. Coincidentally, I was prepared to say that I did not agree with you. However, I agreed with the way that this turned out on each of these topics and the decisions that you made for the betterment of ABKC and these different issues, man. And I commend you for staying in the fight for our breed in the UK. It was a very tragic thing, and I know that our community, the majority of our community, does not know and did not know the extent that y'all went through. And I know that y'all did lives and stuff like that with Monster and them, and I watched those, but I don't know that enough people seen that, because the buzz and the pulse that we were getting on the other end of it was that, oh, Dave turned his back on the breed and blah blah, and everybody was pissed. And the truth is, you didn't. And the truth is, nobody stood for our breed more than you and the people that were on your team. And so I commend you for that. And I'm glad we were able to straighten a lot of these things out. I'm very pleased that y'all separated the XL American Bully from the Brazilian Bull. It's a beautiful dog. It deserved to be its own breed. There's been a lot of XL breeding in the last decade or so that would have been trampled by the combination of these breeds. We had to reevaluate. All these programs would have been redirected. I think it was the right move. Man, you're doing a great job.
Thank you very much. And, I just want to say, we're not perfect, and we know we're not perfect. This was something, again, done out of necessity, not done out of the concept of business ever. So we're learning as we go, and we do make mistakes along the way. I see that one of the biggest mistakes that we have made is a full reach to our community. We're not able to reach everybody through the avenues that we have, and that's something that we need to look into. And thank you very much, Raul, for having me on here, because this enables us to reach another part of the community. In the situation in the UK, I mean, I definitely did not do well in that first interview because, again, I was misled on that. But, instead of saving face, we jumped into saving the breed the best that we can. And we haven't stopped that fight, and we're not going to stop that fight. And even if the appeal doesn't work, we're still going to try to find another way about this. So, it is what it is, and we're here for the community. So whatever the community needs, that's just what we do. And again, like I said, we make mistakes. And Raul, I apologize for not responding to you sooner. I truly never saw your message. And it was recently that I started seeing all your videos. And when I started seeing the video, I said, man, this guy is really doing something for the breed. And I really enjoyed watching your videos. And I was like really refreshing to see like somebody really teaching people and speaking out in ways. And it's like, so that's what caused me to reach out to you, because I was really impressed with what you did. And when I reached out to him is when I saw his message from 20 years ago, or 3 years ago. So I apologize for that, but I do appreciate everything you're doing, and I'm very impressed with your live. So anytime you need me, I'm always available, and I'm always here to work for the community. That's just what I do. So, and again, I just want people to understand, I am not the XL breeder. I'm not the creator of the XL. I'm not the expert on the XL. I am basically an employee that works for this community. So, you all can enlighten me a lot more on things that I don't know. And I would never turn my back on the breed, and I would never try to take credit for all the other people who are responsible for the breed. I just do my part and the best of my ability. So thank you all.
Well, we really thank you, Dave. Listen, let me bring my guy from the back. There you go. Hold on. Let me move things around here real quick. So, Dave, we have a thing where we do our outro. I'm going to give Hollywood a chance. I think he wants to say something. Go ahead, Hollywood.
Dave, this interview was awesome, man. And honestly, I have a lot more respect for you after this interview. Truly. Like you said, I think a lot of people, it was really hard for the community to get everything and all the information, like Mike said. And after hearing you speak about genetic testing and the contracts and everything else, is what we've been preaching on this live for so many years. And people have fought against us, but it's coming out of the president's mouth, and that's awesome. I love it. And nothing, man. I just really appreciate everything you said tonight. And I hate that you are the brunt of a lot of this stuff, but of course you're the face, which I'm sure you're used to it. But I think and I hope this clears up a lot for the community tonight doing this interview. And I really respect that, and I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate your time. So,
Dave, we really appreciate you all the way around, man. Like the fact that you didn't duck. You answered every question directly. In fact, you went in, gave details, and that's the kind of stuff. Know that this is an outlet, not just for the American Bully XL community, but the American Bully community in general. And the same way you're thanking us, we're thanking you and letting you know if you ever need any information be thrown out there or whatnot, we invite you to come here and use our platform and throw it out there. Right now, we're going to start the outro. So we're going to start out with Hollywood, then Michael Higginson, then Dave. By there, you would have seen how we do it. And let's follow suit. Dave, don't hang up as soon as we get off. Even though you won't be able to see us on the screen, we want to talk to you here for a minute. Okay. Hollywood, start it up, man.
It's your boy, Hollywood Holland, your boy in the back of the queue, and we're catching you on the next one.
Michael Higginson.
Michael Higginson, man, out of Arkansas with QBN Kennels, man, your co-host with the most. Loved everything tonight, man. Glad we got it all straightened out. Dave, man, much respect. Raul, we'll be here on the next one.
Dave Wilson.
I cannot do it nowhere near as cool as both of them did it, but I just want to once again thank you all for the time. Always here for our community, whatever you all need. It's been a blessing to serve the community, and I will always do my part. So thank you all for the time. Much respect to everybody.
Hey, guys, you already know we do this every Monday and every Friday, 8 p.m. CST. It's been Raul from the Q, catching you on the next one.
Here we go. Kill the whistle. Oh, yeah. We are going for a whole hour. Straight dog talk and the song. Jump on in and speculate. Show up on time, don't be weak and late. We are community, so don't hate. And learn to cooperate. Yeah, hit that like button and do your thing. 5 membership will get you in, so let's talk dogs.